Sin yet? I'm about to get out of my bed, so please help me God. The moment we get out of our bed, that's when the battle, the struggle begins. So praise God for His mercies are new every morning. We praise God together. So I want to introduce my wife Gladys. Stand up. Many of you may not know my family, so here's Gladys. She's from the Philippines, and she studied in Singapore, where we met. I'm from Taiwan originally and grew up in America. So a lot of lessons about cross-cultural partnership has come out of our marriage together. So let me just jump to this. Alright, so as I mentioned yesterday, some of you may not be here, but we will be doing training sessions, okay, 4 training sessions together. So it's not going to be Bible, devotions, expository preaching. So adjust your expectations. Be ready to take notes. In pages 14, 15, we'll be going through the 20 questions about partnership. And I will definitely have some time for you to interact with each other, so be prepared. Thinking about your life situations and how you may share with your neighbor or somebody next to you. Okay. Now, in the history of America, there's 2 people, adventurers, named Lewis and Clark. It's very interesting that the President Thomas Jefferson requested that they take an adventure to discover the river route that goes from the east to the west coast of America. It was believed back then that there would be a direct river route, and it would promote trade and be beneficial to the American people. So what's interesting is that Lewis and Clark went on this adventure with a team of people, and they went through some dangerous territories, but eventually they came to a dead end. They came to the very beginning of a river, and instead of continuing, what they found before them was the Rocky Mountains. There was nowhere to go. And all they had were their canoes. So what could they do? Should they continue on and carry their canoes through the mountains? Or turn back and give up? At that time, there was a young mother named Sacagawea. She's from Shoshone tribe, Native American. And she had a baby with her, and she became a navigator, a guide for Lewis and Clark. As they went through territories of Native Americans, here was this young mother carrying her baby. It became less threatening to this group of white men that were on an adventure together. And so through this navigator, they found another river that eventually led to the Pacific Ocean. So in every adventure, there will be serious obstacles, okay, situations that you and I may face that may cause us to think, what do we do now? Should we turn back? Should we give up? Who can help us? Who can navigate for us through these challenges? I want to give you a Thai idiom every session, so I could be learning language. Okay, the Thai word is "ken krok kun pu khao." It means to push something very heavy up, And partnering cross-culturally can be very tough, can be a great challenge. What are some various types of obstacles that you and I may face in partnering Thai leaders? Now, yesterday we started looking at the foundations of partnership. We look at what the Bible teaches us about partnership and why we should partner and the benefits of partnering with Thais. So today we'll be thinking about some obstacles. Now, one of the main obstacles I've observed comes from ourselves, our own mindsets. Sometimes our own expectations can be obstacles, like what I shared yesterday. I have very high expectations of myself, of what I could achieve in my first 2 years in Thailand. And sometimes these expectations can be stumbling blocks and reasons why we feel discouraged. Maybe some of you here are struggling with perhaps unreasonable expectations. You expect your Thai partner that this person should be mature, yet fun to hang out with, or experienced, but not telling you what to do. Theologically sound, but not preachy or not teach too long. Passionate evangelist, but not too pushy. Right? Someone who possesses a great vision, yet not overlook the details. Someone who loves to eat Thai food, but yet appreciates international food, etc. So we have a lot of expectations. And sometimes these can be obstacles for us. Sometimes there's just an obstacle between our hope and the reality that's before us. Like the story I told about Lewis and Clark. They expected, they hoped that there would be a direct, smooth journey from east to west. But the reality is that they were misinformed. They had the wrong set of expectations. They were simply wrong. And the reality that lay before us is that there's going to be a lot of spiritual resistance as we serve the Lord in Thailand. We may have great expectations that God will use us to bring revival, to see many churches multiply. But we are in a country with a lot of challenges spiritually. We need to really rely on God, His grace, and we need to ask for help. Who can help us? Who can navigate for us through this rough terrain? So let's get into the questions. Question number 8 in your notebook. When is it legitimate to feel upset or angry or disappointed about our partnership? It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to be disappointed. Both sides, missionaries, Thai leaders, we have problems. Let's not point fingers at each other. We have seen missionaries unfaithful to their spouse, prideful, stubborn. We've also seen Thai leaders do the same. So we're not here to point fingers at each other. Both sides we have experienced disappointment, discouragement, and expectations are met towards each other. One of the main examples I can think of comes from the history of Karl Gustav. Who is Karl Gustav? Come on, history, Thai Church History 101. Karl Gustav, one of the first missionaries, Protestant missionary that came to Thailand in 1828, Jacob Hamlet. Okay? Thai church knows Gustav. He is the first missionary that came to Thailand. Very interesting. He came to Thailand. He didn't stay long. Okay? For the first few years, he passed out a lot of literature. He saw one Chinese convert. It was very hard. Back in those days, 1828, tropical diseases. His wife died while giving birth to their twin daughter. One twin daughter died, and 6 months later, the second one died. So he was heartbroken, lots of discouragement. So one day, a boat came from China, a trade boat, and he had always wanted to go to China. So he took this boat and left Thailand. Now that's, as far as the Thai church history goes, most Thai Christians know about this. But what happens when Karl Gustav goes to China? That's the second part that most people don't know about. He goes to China and he starts an indigenous ministry, partnering and supporting Chinese evangelists. Okay, so he has funds from overseas, and hundreds of Chinese evangelists receive support, and they spread throughout the different provinces in China. Evangelizing, he hoped. One day, the Chinese national came up and said, Gustav, you got to check out what's happening. You have to go and find out what is happening with your money, with these Chinese evangelists. So he started visiting them one by one and found out that one guy was gambling with the money, another had started his own business, and half the people that received the money were not doing any ministry, and some of them were even born again. Gustav was heartbroken, and he became a part of a target of accusation. What is this guy doing? There's mishandling of funds. And he finished his ministry rather with disappointment and a sense of failure. What is interesting is that he wrote letters about his ministry. sent them all over the world. And one of these letters got to England. News about China. Guess who read it? Hudson Taylor picked up his letter for the first time about China as a young man. He responded to the call to go to China. The rest is history. You should know that, right? So this is an example of how God can use our failures to further His purposes. Even our failures in partnership. But when there are times when you and I will feel a sense of disappointment, when basic commitments made together are ignored, we can feel disappointed. When there is a lack of genuine effort to work through obstacles together. I don't know if some of you are in this situation. There are conflicts in your ministry, and there's not a genuine effort to sit down, talk, work out the problems. When one party persists in a path that is disobedient to Scripture, dishonoring to Christ. We have seen this on both sides, missionaries and Thai leaders. Persistence in doing something that is dishonoring to God. When the partnership is no longer reciprocal, I think it's okay for us who are in long-term partnership to expect something in return. We give our lives, we give ourselves our resources, and we should also benefit, receive some encouragement. It's a reciprocal relationship. When there is breakdown in communication, we'll talk about that today. What happens when there's a breakdown and there's no longer genuine conversations going on? How many of you are in this situation right now? I hope not too many of you, but if you are experiencing some of these issues, okay, I want to tell you that there is hope, that God can help us. There are still ways that we can redeem these situations for the glory of God. But we may need a navigator. We may need someone to help us through this mess. So we need to ask the question, who can help you? If you are experiencing one of these symptoms of obstacles or challenges, who can help you? Let's move on to the 6 areas of conflict. So this came out of my research from 2007 to 2011 on the field. And what happens is that I collect a lot of data, interviews, and case studies. And as I look through this data, look through all the information, I see a pattern. Okay, so for example, one person says, "I'm having communication difficulties. I can't talk about this." And somebody else says something similar, and a third person says something that resonates. So I see a pattern, and I see a theme emerging. So these are not my own ideas, but as I look through the information, these 6 themes just came out. Okay, so I categorize them into these 6 categories. You can look at my thesis if you want. It's in the Bangkok Government Library. I'm not going to go through all the details, but today I will be kind of mixing them up a bit. Okay? So in your real life situation, you're going to face one of these conflicts: cultural, communication, leadership styles, and they're not going to be so neatly fitted in one thing. Okay? Maybe 2 or 3 things together that you're experiencing at the same time. So as you encounter an obstacle, a conflict cross-culturally, you may want to ask yourself, is this a cultural conflict? Or are there communication style differences? Or is it an issue about handling of finances? The way we view from different cultures? Is it a strategic difference? Okay, so be thinking about that. Okay, moving on to the first area of conflict is cultural. Okay? The study has shown that many ministry teams have fallen apart because of cultural conflicts. Let's look at culture together. Okay, I want you to just think of some positive aspects of Thai culture that you really enjoy. Okay, so just think of one thing, whether it's Thai food. Okay, just shout it out. What do you enjoy about Thai culture? Willingness to help. Okay, Nam Jai. Good. What else? Politeness. Sorry, politeness. Yes. What else? Survive. Okay, I like that aspect of culture. Yes.
Hospitality. Hospitality.
Hospitality. Yes. Fun loving. สนุกสนาน
Neighborhood
ใจ
kindness.
เย็น
Neighborhood kindness. They care about you.
ๆ care about you. Yes. What else? Generosity. Okay, good. One more. Modesty. Good. So there are many positive things that we can see from Thai culture. Praise God. There are good things. Now, I have here onion. Okay. When we think about culture, it's helpful to think it as an onion. Okay. An onion has outer layers. Okay. So on the outside of the culture are things that may be easier to imitate. It may be a Thai way of dressing. Okay. Today I'm wearing something suphab, เรียบร้อย You know, this is I want to dress up politely like a Thai person. Okay. So their outer layers are easier to imitate. What else? So Thai ways of greeting. Okay. สวัสดีครับ So how many ways of greetings have you learned? Where to put your hands? Okay. So these are things that are easier. Okay. What about when you go deeper into the culture? Okay. Deeper into the culture. Somebody says สนุกสนาน right? So how much fun do you enjoy being with Thai people? Okay. So sense of humor could be different. Okay. So in a camp like this, okay, how do we have fun? We have board games, right? In the Thai camp, how do we have fun? ไก่ย่างถูกเผา How many times do we do this? ไก่ย่างถูกเผา It's a lot of fun, you know. But sometimes, you know, it starts to get a bit uncomfortable. Okay, and then as you go deeper into the culture, okay, what happens when you peel the onion? Okay, when you get deeper into the culture, there's going to be more pain and more adjustment, more difficult issues to accept. Okay, just give you an example: the use of money. Okay, the use of money has to do with culture. Okay, so suppose in the Thai church planning team, there's a Chinese, there's a Thai, and there's a Westerner. Okay, one day after, at the end of the year, there's a surplus. There's leftover money. Okay, what are you going to do with this money? Church planting team discusses. Chinese person says, let's save this money. We don't have enough in our bank account. Okay, we got to set it aside for the future. And the Westerner says, oh, let's use this money to give to a project. Let's donate to a needy project, a church plant. Use it for God's kingdom. And the Thai person says, let's go out and eat. Let's celebrate. Let's take the kamakan and go to the latest buffet. So the use of money can be a conflict, right? It has to do with how we are raised and our worldview. Culture can also be divided into many categories. So if it helps for you to look at it this way, okay, the more diagonal way, some aspects of culture you may be ready to embrace. For example, you love Thai food. You don't have a problem with watching Thai movies, okay? But there are other aspects you may find a bit difficult. Social dynamics, how you relate to people, okay? So that there are different aspects of culture. And this is when it's important to have some degree of discernment. Because not all culture is good. Some part of culture is neutral, and some of it needs to be changed. So from the Lausanne Covenant, it says culture must always be tested and judged by Scripture. Because man is God's creature, some of his culture is rich in beauty and goodness, like what we have shared about Thai culture. But because he is fallen, all of it is tainted with sin, and some of it may be demonic. As we think about Thai culture, the ceremonial aspects or idol worship, different things that we see that hangs on people's houses. It's part of culture, but it's also not pleasing to the Lord. So we need to have a sense of discernment. Another aspect of culture, this book I would recommend is it's called the 3D Gospel. It's a pretty recent book that introduces culture in different ways. So some cultures in this world are more guilt-oriented, and some are shame and honor-oriented, and some are driven by fear. So as we think about Thai culture, it's definitely more of an honor and shame culture. Giving honor to another person is very important. And so if we want to be effective partners in Thailand, we have to understand the honor and shame dynamic. I encourage you to read up this book. I'm not going to give a long lecture about culture. There's so much to talk about. But just to kind of whet your appetite and get you thinking. Okay, from this book it says, shame honor societies assume a strong group orientation. And you see that in Thailand. Sense of group orientation. Honor is a person's social worth. One's value in the eyes of the community. Honor is when other people think well of you, resulting in harmonious social bonds in the community. Honor comes from relationships. This is very important for most Thai people. They want to be part of the community. They want to be honored. And if we want to relate well with our Thai partners, we have to understand how to give honor, how to relate to them and their set of relationships. Shame, on the other hand, is a negative public rating. The community thinks lowly of you. You're disconnected from the group. For example, one Thai word for shaming means to rip someone's face off. So if you choose to ignore this honor and shame dynamic, most likely you will be isolated. You will not find yourself very effective relating to Thai people. You need to understand this aspect of Thai culture. Now, I don't have time to examine everything about culture. As I said, this is a very detailed study, but I just want to give you one more visual aid that can help you. Okay, so as we think about culture, there's a continuum. On one hand, it's a very traditional culture, traditional music, traditional art forms. On the other hand is very global, okay, international. So for example, when I first came to Thailand, I was part of the countryside, Bang Jangwat community. I love playing Thai Pyro. Okay, it's a traditional Thai hymns. I memorized many of them. She with Rao, Rajao, Song Sa. I can sing hundreds of them out of the top of my head. Okay, but when I came to Bangkok, okay, nobody wants to sing them, and the ones that want to sing Western songs are the Thais. Okay, they want hill songs. They want the latest YouTube videos. And this is a challenge. Okay, so culture is a continuum. Do we keep pushing people to be traditional? So you have to be more Thai. Or do we accept that the culture is changing? It's a continuum. And our goal is not to help Thai people be more traditional. We want to help them to be disciples of Jesus Christ, whatever context they're in. So they may be more in a more global context. They may be in a more traditional context. A traditional context, I'll give you an example. One of my students, a bachelor student who just graduated, she came from a Korean village in the north. So she shared with everyone that I've just been arranged to be married. My father prepared a husband for me. I've never met this person. Okay, so we asked her how she feels. She said, I feel very excited, very happy. I'm going to be married. How many of you can say that? And this is a father who is a strong leader of the village, has 6 children. All of them are pastors. All of them arranged to be married. She's the youngest. Okay, so this is a very traditional Thai, part of Thai society that still exists in many parts of Thailand. So whatever context that you're in, okay, I cannot give you a set of answers, but you need to be asking, how do I disciple someone who may be part of a more traditional community? How do I disciple someone who's part of a more global, international community who prefers to sing translated songs and things are international? All right, let's go on to the next question. How do Thais and missionaries communicate differently? Again, this is a spectrum. On one end, there's a very indirect way of talking. other way more direct. I want to